since you've left me here to die.
So I'm joined here by our guest today. I'd just like you to introduce yourself and where you're from.
I'm Erin and I'm originally from Falkirk, but I reside in East Kilbride.
That's fantastic, Erin. First of all, I'd like to point out your music has a real sense of deep thought and emotional nostalgia. I think your single Clockwork dictates that quite well. Is it an aim of your music to have a certain theme involved in the process?
I don't think there's any kind of theme kind of really involved in the process, so to speak. It's just like maybe an idea that will come and I'll maybe like work on it, or it's something that's maybe I've thought about maybe in a moment, or it's like something that's kind of on the back of my mind, and I'll just write it. So I don't particularly kind of plan like any kind of like particular thought process. Sometimes it's just like in the moment and it happens, and then that's it.
Do you find it with like a song idea that a lot of the time you have to follow through with it quite quickly, or can you leave it a couple of days and add on to it?
I think it's something I've got to go back to quite quickly. There's things I've started in like 2012 that I've only just finished recently, as part of co-writes with other people, where they've kind of taken the idea and kind of helped me kind of build off of it, because I've started and then I've lost kind of my train of thought, and then it's been left in a book for like X amount of years, and then I'll find it again and I'm like, oh, like let's try and do something with that, and then nothing ever happens.
And do you find it quite difficult trying to get that consistency with a song? For example, say you write half it and you like think, oh, this half's really good, and then you're trying to get that consistency to make sure that the next half is just as strong.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because there'll be times when I'll write like a full verse and half a chorus, and then I think, like, what's going to come next?
And there's that process that a lot of musicians talk about to me, where they say, oh, I've wrote this song and it's really good, but I need to finish it now. And then it's just trying to get through that kind of, getting that to that consistency, you know. So what artists would you say have had a major impact on your creative thinking and been a positive inspiration in your own music?
I think there's like only kind of like one kind of real influence, and it's Tegan and Sarah. Like I've listened to them since I was 12 years old, and like they've gone from like acoustic duo to like indie rock duo, and now they're like mainstream pop. Like they've done everything, and I think that when like the things I really kind of connected to are their albums The Con and Sainthood. Like they're like really indie rock, like they have like so much meaning behind their songs. Like you can listen to them and you can feel kind of how they felt in that moment. And like when it comes to writing my own songs, I do kind of try to like draw from like how I felt listening to those songs and things, but I'm trying not to like copy it, so to speak. I think that like there's a major inspiration that runs like through everything I've done.
And has that made you want to be more experimental with your genres because your influences been quite sporadic yourself in the music they create?
Like I think so. Like there's a time where I re-recorded a full EP and I made like a pop production, and then I released it, and then like 3 years later I hated it because it just wasn't like what I was used to doing. I'm used to kind of doing like acoustic things, and then I've gone to the studio and we had like a band and things now, so it's not just kind of me on the production, but it's me solo like on stage. So when I try to write, I try to think of how it's going to sound when it's just me. So when it comes to pop, I'm like, no, I can't do that.
Aye, so on that point, you've been a consistent songwriter for a number of years now. How do you look back on your EP in, for example, 2016 in comparison with what you're creating now? Has there been a big difference in the way you perceive your music?
There has been like a difference. Like when I think about what I did, like my first EP came out in 2012, and I'd only been gigging for about four months by the time I released that EP, and there were songs I wrote when I was like 17, left it at that, and then at 2016 I re-released them with a pop production, and I called it Take Two. It Got Better. So I was like, it was a charity single for the It Got Better, or It Gets Better Foundation, and then it was like the second take of all these songs, and I hated them like 3 years down the line, and I was like, I play them, and then I hear them flat acoustic like how they used to be, and then I've listened to them now, and they're all being redone for the album I'm trying to release. It's been like 7 years in the making, but they sound different again to what they sounded to us before. Like there's no like constant process I've had with them, but the things I'm doing now, like they're so different to what I heard in my head originally. Like the guy I work with just has me play. He's like, this is what I hear. Is this what you hear? And I'm like, it's not what I heard, but let's do it. And like we should run with it. And then like after the end of a day, we have this like mad like song that I'd never thought I would actually have like when I went in.
And see on that as well in terms of working with other creative people, sometimes can be quite scary, like taking that control out of your hands and putting it into somebody else, but yeah, actually learn a lot, and there's wee ideas that they come up with and you'll be like, do you know, I didn't think of that, but that sounds a lot better. But sometimes people are quite hesitant on new ideas for their music.
Yeah, I mean, like, the song Fire I've got, it never had a guitar solo. It was a 4-chord song consistently throughout, and I turned up and the guy just went, what do you think about this? And he just played 4 extra chords, like, it was like E minor, C, like D, G or whatever, and he went, and then sing ooh over that. And it, like, that one whole section didn't exist before, and I was like, I never thought of that. And then he added a guitar solo, and I was like, never thought of that either. Like, I didn't hear it as a rock song, and that's kind of how it became.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'll go with it. Like, it sounds so much better than anything I could have kind of conjured.
Aye, and see something that I've noticed as well with your 2019 single Keep On Running, you've got a lot of depth to the tracks emotionally as well as lyrically. Do you feel as if that you have to treat each song in that individual case where it has a lot of depth?
Not particularly. Like, that particular song I wrote when I was 12, and it wasn't a song when I was 12, it was like a poem based on like a nightmare that had happened, like one of those things like you're chased in a black corridor. Like, there was no rhyme or like reason to the song. It was like this whole kind of dark kind of poem from like emo days back when I was 12, and then I left it in a book, and then years later I found it and I was like, this potentially could be something. When I got to the studio, I couldn't remember the words. So the song, when I listen to it back now, is actually backwards in verses because I couldn't remember what I did. But it's like it was a full day's worth of work. There's like waves in there. Like, when we were listening to it back, we were hearing this like proper like dream sequence where like you're just running from everything, like to the sea, to the ocean, like away from like dark and scary things, and then you're kind of like finding yourself. But it's not something that kind of I thought of at 12. Mm-hmm. It's more something that as I've gotten older and I kind of look back on it, I think, well, maybe this is how I felt then, or maybe it's how I feel now, and maybe that's why it's kind of perceived that way. Or it just could be the case of, you know, people listen to it, maybe that's what they think as well. Like, I think music is very subjective.
And see, in terms of like the emotions you felt when you were younger with that song, has it changed a lot over the person you're now looking at it?
I mean, I think like with kind of things like mental health and stuff, like, so it's a wave, like you ride that wave like all the time. Like, there's been times where I've been off work like really ill and I've gotten better, and I found stuff that, you know, kind of makes like the dark kind of thoughts disappear a bit. And like, music is one of those things, but it's not something I would have had kind of when I was 12. Like, you're going through school, you get like music lessons like once every so often, like maybe like once a week or so. So it's not something I could really kind of throw myself like into, or like thoughts that I could kind of comprehend. Maybe at 12, maybe I kind of don't know what depression is when you're 12, to be honest with you. But kind of going on, like when I look back on things now, I think I have come like quite far from where I was before, but then at the same time, like I kind of wonder if that's kind of lingering in the background, that's kind of where all these sad songs come from.
Mm-hmm. And I think, see, as you develop as a songwriter, a lot of the time that we perceive ourselves to write as black and white, but a lot more grey areas come into it as we develop, I feel, and it's like, I'm happy, but I've got these complications that are involved in the happiness or the sadness, and there's these complications involved in the sadness. So I think that I hear that a lot in your music, because there's a lot of depth to how you think.
I think they're deeper than I think they are when I'm writing them. Like, there's so many times where, like, for example, the song Fire, I wrote it before my ex-girlfriend broke up with me, and it was thinking about what I would feel like if she'd broke up with me and then it happened. So it was one of those things where I would just try to find something to write about because I was happy, and when I'm happy there's like no inspiration. I don't understand kind of why, and then I have to think kind of back to things that maybe hurt or been a bit darker, and then I can maybe like think of something. Whether or not I do something with it is kind of by the by, but like I wrote it thinking back on like, or maybe thinking about what it would be like and like other breakups, and then when it happened, I look back on it now and I think, you know, you wrote this for a reason. Like, you clearly saw something happening that you just didn't want to believe at the time.
And see, when it actually had happened, did it make Was it really quite an accurate reflection how you thought it would be like?
Very, very. It was a breakup over Facebook Messenger. So I resent Facebook
Aye.
Messenger still. Like even if I think about it, I'm like, why? Like it's the worst way to end up like a relationship with anyone. But then it's like I think about it. It's like when it says like you've ripped my heart out, and like it's the only way that I could have kind of described how it felt. 'Cause it was like so out of the blue, and it's like when you see that kind of like in a horror film, they rip the heart clean out. It's like that split second of, oh, and then it's done. But then you obviously like that's a pain that maybe you're never gonna like really either heal from or kind of understand. But as years have gone on, and I've forgotten about it, it's like this, just the sore spot. And then when I think about it now, I'm like, if it hadn't been for that, I probably wouldn't really have this like song now that's kind of out there in the open. And it's a song that obviously like I really love now, but I probably hated. You know, at the time I wrote it, looking at it, I'm like, nope.
So see, like, looking back on it now, can you listen back to it and be a lot more reflective rather than going through the emotions and feeling upset and angry or whatever it is?
I can look back on it now and I'm like, right, this is what happened. Like it's like a total disconnect now. Like my partner doesn't kind of like the songs that came from that time, like for 100% obvious reasons. But there's like a whole EP that came out called Through the Looking Glass, and a lot of the songs on it were just the kind of acoustic takes of songs that I'd made with a friend, but a lot of them were about that particular relationship, and it's like some of them are like a huge like middle finger up, and then some of them are just like kind of like reflections on like kind of that time, 'cause it took so long to kind of move through and get over, and I think it did like provide a lot of kind of material. Like I don't always play it, and when I do, I make jokes beforehand. And then like, you can just see people's faces going, oh, like, this isn't something to laugh about. But then you play the song and then I'm done. And I'm like, my girlfriend's here, by the way. And then they're like, they look over. She's not impressed that I've sang this particular song. But it's one of those things where it's a kind of a reflection of a time that now exists, and it will be out in the world at some point, but it's one of those things for now that's just kind of like a mirror for me to look at.
So it's been a challenging time for musicians with the current restrictions. How has this impacted your plans, and has this made you more enthusiastic to be creative?
I think throughout lockdown, like when the first lockdown hit, I just started a new job as well, so like music for me was kind of back burner. So I was trying to get like used to this new job, kind of working from home as well. It was like a whole change of pace. But then kind of as the kind of lockdown's gone on, and I've got that much more free time because I'm always home, it's something that I've picked kind of back up again. Like 2019 was like gigging like pretty much every week. Like I lost a friend in January 2019 and we played her songs kind of like every week. And we did all this kind of, the start of the year it was like a collective of everyone kind of getting together and just kind of try to figure out kind of what happened, like kind of help us all move through it. And then we just consistently from there kind of just kept going and going and going, and then it got to the end of the year. I thought gigs are done, time to relax, pick it back up in January, and then kind of that slow progression happened where everything got cancelled and things closed, and like it's given me a lot more time to be creative at home. Like there's songs that I wrote in 2012 that I never finished, and ideas I've had now where I've taken to like virtual songwriting sessions with like Mick Harrigan, and we've created whole new songs out of these little ideas that I came into this little kind of session with, and it's kind of given me more time to connect with other musicians, and I'm getting to like work with people in America right now. One of my friends, we're recording a song right now, so I've done most of it at home. I send it away, he works on it and brings it back. So I kind of think without lockdown and kind of the whole coronavirus COVID-19 situation, none of this kind of would have happened.
Well, that's a good positive to take for that. I know you've been teasing new music for a period of time now. When can we expect to hear more information about a release?
Hopefully soon. The song that I'm recording with my friend right now is very nearly done. It's been months in the making, mostly because it's like across an ocean we're making it, so it's kind of time reliant on us and time zones and things. So when I'm asleep, he's awake, and it's a bit of a nightmare, but we're trying to get the logistics kind of sorted. But it's actually a cover of my friend Charlie's song. It was the last song she released before she passed away as a demo, and I've sang it every week since then. And it's something that obviously means like so much to me. The lyrics mean so much to me as well, and we've taken her words and kind of my version of the music, and we've made something totally different with it, and we're hoping to have it out in 2020. If it's not done by like the end of this month, we'll definitely have something out early 2021.
That's great, Erin. Thanks for coming on. So where can we hear your music?
It's on Spotify and Apple Music, and you can also buy it on iTunes.
Right, thanks so much, Erin.
You're very welcome.